Okay. Are you facing a real estate market crash in a very comfortable zone in real estate in the Villages, Florida?
Something is happening inside the Villages that few saw coming, and it's shaking the community in ways no one expected. What many believed was a stable, almost untouchable retirement haven is now showing cracks that raise serious questions about its future. The sudden shift hasn't just surprised residents, it's left outsiders wondering what actually changed behind the scenes. And as one specific issue grows larger each month, the real concern becomes whether this is only the beginning of a much deeper problem. The sudden shift in housing stability. The Villages was once a shining example of retirement living, predictable costs, stable home prices, and a lifestyle designed for peace of mind. That stability has collapsed in just a short time, flipping the community from a place of security into a landscape of financial uncertainty. Homes that used to sell within days now languish on the market for months, and monthly housing expenses have climbed beyond what most fixed incomes can bear. For residents who planned their golden years around fixed Social Security and modest pensions, this sudden shift is nothing short of alarming. The question everyone is asking is, how did a community built so carefully for predictability find itself in this crisis? At the heart of this chaos is a market unraveling faster than anyone expected. The factors pushing prices, fees, and insurance costs skyward didn't appear overnight, but the pace of change has left almost no room for adaptation. Monthly housing costs for a typical home have increased by hundreds of dollars, and insurance premiums have soared to levels that would have seemed unimaginable just a few years ago. Many retirees find themselves caught between rising expenses and a fixed income that cannot stretch to cover them. This gap not only drains savings, but also forces tough choices about essentials like medication and food. The impact is widespread because the Villages is more than a retirement community. It's the size of a mid-sized city, with over 130,000 residents and a sprawling footprint across 3 counties in central Florida. Disruptions ripple through entire neighborhoods and town centers. The problem isn't isolated to a few homes. It touches thousands, creating a regional alarm. The sheer scale means that what happens here sends warning signals far beyond Florida's borders. Retirees nationwide watch closely, because if stability can crack here, where can it hold firm? Despite the growing problems, the deeper reasons for this unraveling are still often misunderstood. It's easy to blame rising real estate prices or inflation alone, but the reality is more complex. The intertwining of escalating fees, insurance market breakdowns, and rigid community financial obligations traps homeowners in a tightening vice. These forces combine to create a high-stakes environment where simply holding on to a home becomes a battle against mounting costs. Many residents describe feeling stuck, unable to sell without realizing a loss, and unable to afford staying put. What complicates the crisis further is the illusion of control that residents once felt. The community's design was built around predictability. Fees, taxes, and bonds were structured to be known quantities, and the developer's presence was meant to ensure smooth management. But that structure has started to work against the residents, locking them into financial commitments that grow regardless of income or market health. The once clear and steady cost model now feels like a trap with no easy exit. Adding to the anxiety is the contrast between past and present market behavior. Before, homes sold quickly, and prices rose in manageable steps tied to demand and supply. That rhythm supported retirees relying on precise budgets and predictable income. Now, sellers face dwindling buyers and frequent setbacks as insurance complications derail deals at the last moment. The market freeze is stark and sudden. catching many off guard after years of steady growth. This sudden economic shift is more than a market fluctuation. It strikes at the foundation of retirement planning in the villages, a community designed precisely to avoid such instability. The deep sense of security residents once enjoyed has given way to uncertainty and hardship, forcing families into decisions they never wanted to make. In many cases, the financial consequences go beyond a momentary setback, threatening decades of savings and peace of mind. Still, the full story of how these problems converged remains to be told. The roots run deep into how the community expanded, the pricing of essential services evolved, and the fragile insurance market restructured itself under new pressures. These elements create a puzzle that explains why the villages, once a retirement ideal, is now trapped in a crisis that feels like no one saw coming. Understanding this sudden shift demands looking back at the unique growth patterns and extraordinary demand that drove the rapid changes in the village's market in recent years. Explosive growth and rising demand. Over the last decade, the villages did what few retirement communities have managed. It grew at an extraordinary pace. From 2010 to 2020, the population more than doubled, making it the fastest-growing metropolitan area in the United States during that time. This expansion was fueled by retirees moving from states like New York, Illinois, and New Jersey, all drawn by the promise of sunshine, affordability, and a lifestyle tailored to their needs. It grew so rapidly that the villages now ranks among the top 50 largest metropolitan areas in the country, outpacing cities with long-established infrastructures like Charleston and Santa Rosa. This explosive growth wasn't random. The developers offered a highly engineered retirement environment with wide golf cart boulevards, medical offices on every corner, and social calendars full of events. Nearly every aspect of daily life was designed to promote ease, connection, and active living. For many, purchasing a home here meant buying into a carefully curated dream, affordable, safe, and stable. The size and scope of these neighborhoods created a city-like community made up entirely of retirees over 55. As demand surged, the housing market moved quickly. Before 2020, homes would sell in as little as 25 to 40 days. Buyers were plentiful and motivated, often paying in cash, and inventory was low, encouraging brisk sales and stable pricing. Most buyers depended on fixed incomes and relied on the predictability of monthly fees and known costs. This balance held as long as supply met demand under reasonable growth assumptions. The arrival of the pandemic in 2020 was a game-changer. Suddenly, the villages became a magnet for early retirees fleeing crowded cities and seeking warmer climates. With travel restrictions easing and remote work normalizing, flights arriving weekly from major hubs became packed with hopeful buyers clutching cash, ready to snap up any available property. The pace shifted from steady to frenzied almost overnight. Bidding wars erupted, and houses that previously sold for $220,000 topped $350,000 or more in just months. Developers were left behind in the race and scrambled to catch up. Ground was broken on new neighborhoods even before the old phases were finished, as construction crews raced against the clock. Streets and homes were built at an astonishing pace, and sales offices were running at full capacity to cater to the great demand. Buyers accustomed to the market being hot were ready to skip inspections and even offer more than the asking price, simply to get in the market. The frenzy was sustained by a common thought that prices would keep rising. With every next phase, prices jumped dramatically. The villas, which were once reasonably priced, doubled or even tripled in price. The range of mid-tier properties went from approximately $350,000 to way over $500,000. Homes with high-quality features reached the $1 million mark for the first time. In addition, the amenity fees that include golf courses and pools went up slightly as well, to over $185 per month. The belief that this boom was unending was reflected in the discussion and made many people go beyond their budgets, hoping for a price increase later. However, the quick growth came along with the pitfalls of instability. The relentless growth brought in huge infrastructure costs and made community maintenance very expensive. In the market of the fastest growing and the retirees, since the incomes of the latter were fixed and predictable, thus, the financial demands of the community that was growing so fast created pressure points beneath the surface. The market was on fire, and the equilibrium of supply, demand, and cost was beginning to strain. The signs of tension became visible when the residents began to ask if the prices could go higher, and the market was already ahead of reality. The old and reliable formula was giving in, even when new people kept coming. The spur of growth was accompanied by the fear of losing one's investments, which was a sign that things might not be as tight as many wished. From this fevered surge of demand and expansion, the newest challenge would emerge: the unraveling of cost predictability that retirees had counted on so deeply. The breakdown of cost predictability. One of the defining promises of life in the villages was stable, predictable housing expenses that fit within most retirees' fixed incomes. In 2019, a typical $300,000 home came with monthly costs of about $2,225. That amount covered the mortgage, property taxes, just over $3,000 a year, homeowners insurance, amenity fees, HOA dues, and community development district bond payments. For many couples, this consumed just over half their combined Social Security and pension income, leaving enough for food, healthcare, and other basics. But by 2025, that balance had collapsed. Monthly costs for the same $300,000 home climbed to nearly $3,000. While mortgage payments stayed mostly unchanged, fees and insurance surged. Amenity charges rose to almost $200. Bond assessments reached $280, and HOA dues jumped to about $350. The most dramatic shift came from insurance. Premiums that once cost around $180 per month soared to more than $650. This added roughly $720 each month.
Home insurance is affecting everyone here in the villages because there have been some big changes lately. Insurance in Florida changes quite often and quite quickly.
Money retirees had to pull from limited savings or forced IRA withdrawals. These increases are not abstract. They severely erode quality of life. Retirees living on fixed incomes, typically $1,800 to $2,200 per person in Social Security plus pensions, often under $1,500, now spend 60% to 75% of their income just to stay in their homes. That leaves almost nothing for food, medication, or emergencies. Stress grows as budgets fall apart, and every unexpected bill becomes a crisis. Worse, most residents cannot simply earn more income. At their age, work is rarely an option. Selling the home offers little relief, as the market is now crowded with unsold properties and falling prices. Many owners would take tens of thousands of dollars in losses, and moving itself is expensive. Relocation costs can exceed $10,000, putting escape out of reach for many. What was once a predictable retirement plan has become a financial squeeze with no easy way out. Community Development District bond payments are particularly inflexible. These annual charges, funding roads, utilities, and public spaces, must be paid regardless of market conditions or a homeowner's personal situation. The boards that set these fees are often controlled by the developer or appointees, limiting residents' influence over increases. Every hike becomes automatic and non-negotiable, reinforcing the squeeze on households that rely on steady expenses. For many residents, higher fees translate into real sacrifices. A jump in amenity charges might mean skipping dinners out or cutting back on social activities. Rising insurance premiums can force difficult decisions, delaying medication refills or putting off necessary home repairs. Those living alone, who lack shared incomes, face an even steeper burden, teetering on the edge of financial collapse. The illusion of predictability has faded quickly, replaced by arithmetic that cannot be ignored. What was once manageable is now a budget problem rooted in fixed incomes and climbing costs. This breakdown is not a sign of poor planning on the part of retirees, but reflects systemic pressures reshaping the community's financial landscape. Insurance, in particular, has become the breaking point for thousands of residents. Premiums that hovered around $2,000 annually have surged to $6,000, $8,000, or even $9,500 for single-family homes. Villas once affordable now face premiums between $4,500 and $7,000 per year. This growing expense is driven not only by inflation, but by an insurance market retreating from Florida due to hurricane risks, litigation, and rising reinsurance costs. As the costs of ownership diverge sharply from fixed incomes, the foundation of trust that retirees placed in their home investment weakens. This growing divide sets the stage for the deeper insurance struggles and market freezes yet to come. With costs spiraling beyond expectations, the residents of the villages face a reality where the dream of predictable retirement living is quickly evaporating. Insurance crisis and its impact. Insurance has become the breaking point for countless residents in the villages. What was once a manageable annual cost of around $2,000 ballooned rapidly, with premiums now routinely hitting $6,000, $8,000, or even $9,500 for single-family homes. Villas, once considered affordable, face bills between $4,500 and $7,000 a year. This surge isn't simply inflation at work. It reflects a deeper market collapse triggered by repeated hurricane losses, skyrocketing reinsurance costs, and aggressive litigation in Florida. Insurers have pulled back aggressively, leaving many homeowners scrambling. Thousands of policyholders receive non-renewal notices year after year, often with demands for costly roof replacements or upgrades as preconditions just to maintain coverage. For roofs older than 15 years, the answer is frequently no renewal, no exceptions. The withdrawal of private insurers pushes many to Citizens Property Insurance, Florida's state-backed insurer of last resort. By 2025, an astonishing 35 to 45% of residents in the villages will rely on Citizens, an extraordinarily large share that signals how dire the insurance market has become here. However, Citizens comes with its own set of challenges. Coverage is limited compared to private options and comes with higher deductibles. Homeowners also face the looming threat of special assessments if a major storm strikes, potentially forcing residents to cover disaster costs on top of their already skyrocketing premiums. It is an uneasy safety net that offers incomplete protection and significant financial uncertainty. Many homeowners feel trapped between losing insurance altogether and accepting less comprehensive, more costly coverage. The timing of insurance decisions makes matters worse. Non-renewal notices often arrive just 90 to 120 days before a policy expires, leaving little time to seek alternatives. Real estate agents report frantic calls from homebuyers who discover days before closing that no insurer will write a policy for the property at any price. These last-minute collapses derail deals and frustrate sellers and buyers alike. In 2025, nearly 1 in 4, sometimes close to 1 in 3, pending home sales in the villages fail solely because buyers cannot secure insurance. The relentless roof age crisis exists in parallel. Even if the roof is not damaged in any way, insurance companies will still ask for full roof replacement after 15 to 20 years. The cost of replacement usually goes as high as or over $15,000, a figure that is out of reach for many retirees. Without a new roof, homeowners are denied insurance coverage outright, and the houses lose their ability to be sold at all. Some people turn to forced-placed insurance from lenders, which is 2 to 3 times more costly than the usual price, just to keep their mortgages paid off. Others choose to remain uninsured, which puts them at the risk of foreclosure or complete loss. Each renewal cycle brings with it new shocks every year. A policy that used to cost $2,400 could suddenly be as much as $8,000 or $10,000. Some people will have to spend thousands more on repairs to get the coverage back again. The market is frozen due to this pattern of sudden and steep increases. Sellers are reluctant to put their homes for sale. Buyers are pulling back. And uncertainty is spreading. Houses are piling up as unsold properties trapped in a bottleneck that is mostly caused by the insurance squeeze. The insurance crisis is not a standalone problem. It adds to the affordability issues brought about by increasing costs and unchanged salaries. Pensioners who have to deal with both increasing premiums and fixed pensions are in very difficult positions. Others are postponing necessary treatments to pay their monthly bills. For numerous people, insurance has gone from being a secondary expense to a major crisis. This insurance breakdown not only impacts the daily lives of individuals, but also the whole market structure of the villages. It leads to a lack of confidence in buyers, which in turn causes a slowdown in sales, thus creating a vicious cycle of decline that will ultimately affect the community's future. As homeowners face this insurance squeeze, the market itself begins to reflect the strain, turning what was once a seller's haven into a stalled, buyer-weary landscape. Market freeze and falling home values. The once fast-moving housing market in the villages has slowed dramatically. Homes that used to sell within weeks now sit on the market for 85, 100, even 120 days or more. Inventory has surged to 2,500 to 3,500 unsold homes, a 55% to 75% jump from just a few years ago. Sellers are cutting prices repeatedly, yet demand remains weak. Entry-level villas that once topped $350,000 have fallen by $40,000 to $60,000. Mid-tier homes are down $60,000 to $90,000, while luxury models have dropped $100,000 to $150,000. With rising fees and steep insurance challenges, buyers are no longer willing or able to pay former peak prices, creating a strong buyer's market. Failed sales have become common. 1 in 4, sometimes nearly 1 in 3, contracts collapse because buyers cannot secure insurance before closing. These sudden failures leave sellers stuck and deepen market uncertainty. As homes stack up, prices continue to slide, reinforcing the downturn. Many owners now owe more on their mortgages than their homes are worth. Negative equity, once rare in retirement communities, has become widespread since the 2021 to 2022 buying boom. Couples who bought at peak prices have watched tens of thousands of dollars of value disappear, making it nearly impossible to sell without significant financial loss. The rising cost of moving, including the average $10,000 to $20,000 for relocation, not counting new deposits or finding affordable comparable housing, makes leaving a difficult option. In addition, many residents are in their 70s or 80s, with chronic health issues and community ties that complicate relocation. Local healthcare networks and Medicare Advantage plans often limit coverage to the region, reinforcing the hold the Villages has on its aging population. What results is a kind of paralysis. Homeowners caught between rising costs that consume most of their fixed income and a housing market that offers no clear relief. The community's once steady liquidity has dried up. For many, the next move is impossible, and the shelter they counted on has become a financial prison. The scale of the slowdown is staggering. An activity that once measured in weeks now stretches to over half a year. Even luxury properties that once sold in days linger unsold for over 150 days. The market no longer reflects easy sales or steady appreciation. Instead, it echoes the deep concerns of residents who face vanishing equity and mounting expenses. This freeze in the Villages forewarns broader issues for age-restricted communities nationwide. When predictable retirement costs spiral out of control and insurance collapses, the promise of retirement security erodes. For thousands of residents, the dream has turned into a trap. Caught in a cycle of rising costs, stagnant sales, and shrinking options, the unraveling housing market reveals a stark reality. Stability in retirement communities is fragile, and when it breaks, the consequences ripple far beyond any single neighborhood. Financial and emotional realities for residents. Behind the rising fees and falling home values in the Villages lies a deeply personal struggle for thousands of retirees. Most rely on fixed incomes from Social Security and modest pensions, leaving little room to absorb sudden increases. Housing costs now consume 60 to 75% of their income, forcing difficult choices between paying essential bills, buying food, or maintaining health care. For many, the math simply no longer works. The emotional strain is equally severe. Couples sit at kitchen tables surrounded by bills they can't fully pay. One pair bought a home for $385,000 in 2021. Within 2 years, its value fell to $320,000, while their insurance tripled.
More and more homeowners are abandoning home insurance because of skyrocketing costs. According to Bankrate, the national average for home insurance jumped 20% last year to more than $1,400 annually, and that's just for a $250,000 home.
To stay afloat, they withdraw from their IRAs, creating higher tax bills and shrinking their long-term savings. Single residents feel the squeeze even more. A 78-year-old widower living on Social Security now faces $2,600 in monthly housing costs and doubled insurance premiums. Forced to rely on credit cards, he risks foreclosure as debt, and late notices accumulate. These situations amplify fear, isolation, and a sense of helplessness. The situation in healthcare is taking a toll on the patients. With the increasing out-of-pocket costs, the patients are deferring their appointments and avoiding medication. Clinics have noticed an increase in missed appointments, which indicates that financial strain is having a direct effect on the physical health of the patients. Stress and declining care are connected in a loop that makes the patients even more vulnerable. For those who are debating moving, there are major obstacles. The moving costs can be as much as $20,000, and it is quite hard to find a rental that is not only affordable, but also suitable for the elderly and sick in terms of their age and health conditions. At the age of 75 or 80, it is hard to think of starting all over again. Many people just remain where they are because moving is too much of a hassle. Robust social networks, friends, clubs, and neighbors that offer support are even more binding for the residents. Giving up means cutting off these lifelines. On the other hand, tight rental restrictions do not allow residents to make money from their properties even for a short time. All these factors put the residents in a situation where resisting seems very difficult. What was previously considered a serene and certain retirement has turned into a daily battle, one that requires a lot of strength, is accompanied by silent unease, and is full of unmade inquiries about what lies ahead. The financial and emotional weight pressing on residents creates a deeper impasse, one that revolves around a system designed to keep them locked in place, regardless of how untenable their situations become. The lock-in effect. For many residents under financial strain, leaving the villages is far more complicated than selling a home. A mix of financial, medical, and social barriers creates a lock-in effect that keeps people in place even as costs soar. The strongest barrier is healthcare. Most retirees rely on Medicare Advantage plans tied to local doctors and hospitals. Moving away often means losing trusted specialists and coverage networks, a risk many cannot take. As out-of-pocket costs rise, clinics report more missed appointments and delayed prescriptions, worsening health and making relocation even less feasible. Social ties form a second powerful lock. The villages thrives on clubs, activities, and neighbor-to-neighbor support. These networks give residents purpose and practical help, rides to appointments, recovery assistance, and daily companionship. For older adults, breaking away from this support system can feel emotionally and logistically impossible. Strict rental rules add yet another obstacle. Developer-controlled boards have tightened regulations to the point where most long-term and short-term rentals are banned. Homeowners who might rent their property to cover rising expenses or live elsewhere temporarily now face fines or forced sales if they try. Mandatory bond payments and amenity fees continue regardless of occupancy, trapping residents financially even if they are not living in their homes. Age and health further complicate moving. Chronic conditions, mobility challenges, and cognitive limitations make relocation physically overwhelming. Starting over in an unfamiliar place without established medical or social support networks can feel unmanageable. Financial barriers weigh heavily as well. Many homeowners are underwater on their mortgages or would face substantial losses if they sold. Combined with high moving costs, leaving becomes economically out of reach. What once felt like a stable, predictable retirement haven now functions as a trap. The combination of healthcare dependency, deep social ties, and rigid financial obligations leaves countless retirees stuck, unable to afford staying, yet unable to leave. This entrapment sets the stage for confronting the forces behind the crisis, how power and control play a pivotal role in shaping the community's fate and residents' options. Developer control and resident powerlessness. At the core of the village's crisis is a governance structure heavily controlled by the developer and its appointed boards. For years, community development district supervisors, often chosen by the developer, have held the power to raise fees, issue bonds, and impose rules with minimal resident involvement. Decisions typically prioritize continued growth and revenue, leaving homeowners feeling sidelined as costs climb with little room for input. Budget meetings rarely change outcomes. Even when residents speak up, fee hikes and new assessments are routinely approved with limited debate. For retirees living mostly on fixed incomes, even small increases create significant strain. Nearly 3/4 of households are vulnerable to these cost jumps, reinforcing a sense of helplessness as financial pressures intensify. Long-term infrastructure bonds add a further layer of practical inflexibility. These bonds secure financing for utilities, roads, and recreational facilities, but the obligations are still attached to the land, making it possible for them to outlive house sales and even the death of the owner. Unpaid assessments can result in the imposition of liens, tax certificate sales, or foreclosure. According to Florida law, these assessments have a priority claim over many other debts, which makes home ownership a liability for the heirs who may get it unintentionally. The strict rental restrictions also practically eliminate the other options. The residents who would like to rent their homes in order to partially cover the increased living costs are also affected by the rules that prohibit short and long-term rentals of most types. These restrictions, in combination with the mandatory bond payments and the payment for the amenities, leave the homeowners no choice but to continue with their costs, even if they are having a hard time managing them. The same pattern can be seen in the entire state of Florida, not just in the Villages. The 3 Florida age-restricted communities, namely Del Webb, Stone Creek, and On Top of the World, reflect the same trends: steady fee increases, insurance shortfalls, and developer influence, making it difficult for the residents' voices to be heard. Basically, these power dynamics in retirement communities unveil an issue of sorts that has been around for a while. The predictability that the residents are offered is usually linked with systems that give them little or no control. Only with genuine representation for the homeowners will the problems of rising costs, market stagnation, and resident hardship cease to exist. At the moment, many are caught in a system that is designed for growth rather than long-term stability or resident welfare, so they feel trapped. The housing crisis unfolding in the Villages reveals just how fragile the promise of easy retirement can be when real-world pressures close in. Rising costs, shrinking choices, and a system built on tight control have turned a once-polished vision of paradise into something far more stressful for residents. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe to stay updated on the challenges shaping communities across the country, and watch the next video shown on the screen.